G'day guys, Michael Clarke here and welcome back to Beyond 23. Wow, what a test match, what a week, what a win from the Aussies. Just want to take this time, little shout out to all of our fans, but particularly the guys following us on the YouTube channel at Beyond 23 Cricket Pod, our listeners on Spotify, Beyond 23 Cricket Podcast, and of course, our friends on Instagram following us at Beyond 23 Pod. Adelaide is an absolute beautiful place to play and to watch.
But I think it's a top 5, if not top 3 sporting event in Australia. Last session on the day-night test, wow, some great cricket.
So I reckon the pink ball plays a big part there. The pink ball, in what I've seen in my time, it swings more than the red and it swings for longer than the red.
Is the pressure off Marnus now? Do you think he'll bat for the rest of the summer?
I wouldn't be surprised if Marnus makes 100 in the GABBA test match. There you go.
Do you reckon Boomer's injury cloud's an injury cloud?
I think Boomer is 100% fit. I reckon you'll see him headphones on, walking around the ground, doing laps to recover and in the gym building strength in between test matches. Georgie Parker with us again. What did you make of that test match?
Well, we'll get into that in a minute because we got to remember you got to like and subscribe to all of our channels. Give us a rating and you can comment as well. So we've had a few comments here. Cambo YT, absolutely loved this. Can't wait to more following the lead up to the second test. We'll get into the second test very soon, Cambo. September Industries 6336. Message Virat and invite him to the podcast.
Well, watch this space. Watch this space. They're coming to Sydney, so you never know your luck in a big city.
You're mates with Virat, aren't you?
I like Virat. Yeah, I get on well with him. Tough competitor, but I like him. Actually, I found one, Georgie, and I think I've got an idea what this is. Crickety Life 8742 says, wow, Georgie didn't bring up the 2019 Pat Cummins delivery to Joe Root. Must have been hard. Very good point because you bring it up every day.
It's part of my daily life, but that might have been replaced from the Adelaide test. How good was Pat Cummins'
you like that delivery to the captain, Rohit Sharma.
Wasn't it?
It was
unbelievable.
A beauty.
I don't know how many times I've watched it. Fair few, an unhealthy amount of times. But maybe I'll bring out the Cummins to a Joe Root delivery at some stage over this summer.
Beautiful.
Well, let's get stuck in because the Adelaide test.
Let me start because you were lucky enough to be there. I didn't get there, unfortunately, and Adelaide is an absolute beautiful place to play and to watch. What was it like for you?
Well, I can speak from a watching perspective and it is the destination test. Yeah. I don't know about you, and I'll ask you about how it was to play, but as a spectator, it is the place to be in Adelaide. I think it's the test of the calendar now. Sold out both days. I know we've got it sold out day one at the MCG, but it's Boxing Day. It's very different. The vibe there is unbelievable. The day-night, it adds something special. Obviously, the last session on the day-night test, wow, some great cricket is had.
We'll get into that because I reckon the pink ball plays a big part there. But you're 100% right from a player's perspective. Yeah. It's one that you look forward to every year.
And why is that?
I think Adelaide in general, the ground is magnificent. Yeah. It's a beautiful feeling ground when you're out there on there. I love the hill and the old scoreboard. That's still so special. It's got the history and the tradition. And I think the day-night test now in Australia, it's a must. Yeah. I think it's become, it's a little bit like the Melbourne Cup or the Australian Open.
It's a combination.
I think it is. And I think like people go to watch the test, but man, I've got plenty of friends that sit out the back, watch it on the big screen and just have an absolute beauty of a time. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes next year when the GABBA has it. But I think Adelaide have done it exceptionally well.
I think that, and might eat my words here, but I think it's a top 5, if not top 3 sporting event in Australia. I think it is unbelievable. I think, and add Ashes on top of that.
Yeah, wow.
And you're really making something really special. And obviously, when we get a good win, it adds to it as well. And we win the day-night.
I think that's the other thing. Australia's success in the day-night test has been phenomenal. It's like certainly our bowlers, they can't wait to get the pink ball in their hand and bowl in those conditions.
Harder for batters?
It's one of those ones you want to win, but you probably, if you can make a half century, you're very happy.
Are you glad?
Or you want to bat during the day. There you go. You don't want to bat under lights.
Are you glad that these came in after your career?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Like it. I think. Well, I think the toss of the coin's important.
Yep.
But I think when you declare in the day-night test is probably more important than any other test match. Like you see a lot of times, if teams get the advantage and get in front, they'll declare with 6 overs left in the day to try and pick up 1 or 2 wickets under lights. And that's why I reckon that innings of Marnus Labuschagne and McSweeney, after bowling India out and having to bat then under lights, Bumrah, brand new pink ball, I think that partnership set up that victory for Australia.
And Khawaja held on long enough to protect Labuschagne.
He sure did. Yeah, he played well. Again, I think India might have bowled a fraction short and a fraction wide compared to how they bowled in Perth in the first innings. But I think the way the Australian batters played, I think they had that mindset, this is the toughest time to bat. If we can find a way to get through this and not concern ourselves with runs, we can make hay while the sun shines the next day. And then Travis Head did.
Yeah.
You know, so if I'm Travis, I'm thanking those 2 boys, or those 3 boys particularly, our top 3, for getting me to that next day when the sun was on his back.
We'll get to Heady in a little bit, but Marnus, obviously that would have been the most pressure he's been under as a player.
Well, it seems like, you know, listening to some of the things he said after the game, he certainly felt that.
Yeah.
He felt... he felt there was something with his game that he needed to fix in his own mind. So he spent the week leading into the test match to work on that. But who wouldn't feel under pressure when there was something written every day? You know, it was pretty much said if Marnus makes no runs in this test, it was going to be his last. So again, I think the way he started, the ball was moving and it didn't look great. He played and missed a lot, had a little bit of luck. But that's cricket as well. You know, I think the fact that he got through that, made a half century, now he goes into the Gabba with so much more confidence. I think you'll see a different player at the Gabba.
Well, you said that a pass mark for him was going to be getting over 50. And that's what he did. You also said Stark's going to get 8 wickets. So.
I didn't remember. I thought I said Stark would be our leading wicket taker in the first innings. But if I said 8, I'm taking that.
You said 8.
He bowled like a genius.
So
Starkey.
is the pressure off Marnus now? Do you think he'll bat for the rest of the summer?
I saw David Warner's quotes from a commentary stint, and he said he's still worried that he got out the same way, caught at gully. He still looks scratchy, and he's not in good form. But as I say, I think that's a little bit hard. I think he batted in the toughest conditions out of any of the batters, him and McSweeney. I think he stuck to his gun and showed that grit and that fight to not throw his wicket away when it mightn't have looked or felt magnificent. And I think when you're out of form, it's generally that little scratchy innings that you get yourself a half century that you pay thanks to game after. So go Brisbane, a lot more confident, playing in his own backyard in conditions he knows. I wouldn't be surprised if Marnus makes 100 in the Gabba Test match. There you go.
All right, 50 last one, 100 this one.
Yep.
How much of that is out of being out of form, or how much of that is getting older? So
it's definitely not an age thing.
He's too young for that, you think?
I just think when you watch someone bat and when they've been so successful. So the talk, you know, leading up to Brisbane now is Steve Smith's form. How's Smitty going? You know, he's averaging the 20s in the last 12 months. We're used to him averaging 50 or 60. But I watched them bat and I could see Smitty's, particularly in Perth in the second test, he was watching the ball so closely. This test match in Adelaide, he gets caught down the leg side. You couldn't mean to do that. If you practice nicking that ball.
He gets out like that a little bit, though,
he does,
doesn't he?
because he shuffles across and he's so good outside the off stump. So the ball straightens and he likes to play that leg glance as well. But if you tried to do it 10 times, you'd nick 1.
Yeah, sometimes he just gets a little fine, right? Makes a lot of runs.
I know we don't want to say luck is important, but it is. Luck in any sport is still important. He hits that for 4. He's off and racing. So, I'm not too concerned about, like I say, the talk around Steve Smith now. I think he's ready to go. I think he'll be fine. And I know that innings for Marnus will do his confidence the world of good. So don't be surprised if he makes 100 at the Gabba.
So the top 4 pressure still there?
It's always there if you're not making runs, because your top 4 sets your foundation. Your bowlers win you the game, your batters set it up. So Uzi hasn't had a great start as well. But again, batting's been tough. for the opening batters. There's no doubt about it. But there'll be some talk about Uzi because of his age. He turns 38 in a week, I think. So
18th of December.
18th of December, there you go. So, all of those things contribute. I tell you what helps the most. Winning. Winning seems to sweep everything under the carpet because at the moment, we're now heavily focused on India.
Yeah.
Because they lost. After Perth, it's
a metronome, isn't it? It was all on India when they were coming here because they had their New Zealand loss over at home, which is unheard of.
Yep.
Then pressure on us because we lost in Perth and so emphatically lost as well.
In conditions that we are so accustomed to.
Exactly. Now it's back on India because they've just had a big loss. Do you think it's now back in the middle? No pressure on either side?
Well, I think the opposite. I think it's in the middle, but pressure on both teams.
Yeah.
I think at the moment, you cannot afford to give an inch. I think if you get on top and you get momentum, you need to go as hard for as long as you can, whether that's with the ball. I really like the way Paddy Cummins bowled to the Indian tail. I think he made a very set plan and made it clear to India that we're going to use our short ball against you. Conditions were conducive for that in Perth, and they used Marnus Labuschagne to bowl their bouncers. I'd much prefer Pat Cummins bowling bouncers than Marnus Labuschagne. India would prefer Marnus, but I think Paddy did it well in Adelaide.
Yeah.
I think they're going to get this very similar conditions at the GABBA where it pace and bounce, so you can use that to your advantage. So I'd be surprised if I don't use the same play. India as well. India won't back down. I don't see one problem with what Siraj did and Travis Head did.
Yeah.
Before the start of this series, we were talking about everyone was too friendly. I think the intent from both teams has been spot on.
Yep.
Great entertainment, exactly what we want. Two teams competing hard. If I was India and if I was Australia, I would not be taking a backward step.
So you think send off, nothing in it?
It wasn't even a send off. Don't forget, Siraj dropped Travis Head on 76. So he would have been frustrated. Yep. Then he got him out for 140. So he's let out that frustration. I understand Travis Head's got 140. You don't want any bowler to say to you when you just batted your backside off and made 140. So his reaction was to Siraj just probably letting out that emotion of, thank God we finally got you out, So I didn't see anything wrong with it. I think play on.
I completely agree. Normalise the send-off.
Well, I don't know about normalise the send-off, but trust me, there's been a lot worse send-offs than that. And the other thing as well, both players continued on their way. So even when Travis Head commented back, he didn't stand his ground so it was a face-to-face. He kept walking, which I think he handled that situation well. I think Siraj I think he's fine doing that. Like I didn't see that as a send-off, as I wasn't offended that Travis said something back as well. I just think play on. There's tough cricket being played on the field. Yeah. Both teams want to win. And if that's the maximum we see in this series,
if that's where that line is.
I don't think anyone's got an issue at all.
Before we get on to the GABBA, the Indian bowlers, do you reckon Bumrah's injury cloud's an injury cloud? I
think Bumrah is 100% fit. I don't think you'll see Bumrah bowl many balls at training for the rest of the summer. You've got really, apart from the break between Perth and Adelaide, it's 4 back-to-back test matches virtually. So I reckon you'll see him headphones on, walking around the ground, doing laps, to recover, and in the gym building strength in between test matches. I don't think you've seen
pre-habby kind of areas.
Just getting his body as fresh as it can, as strong as it can, to be able to try and play 5 test matches.
What about the other bowlers? Do you feel as though he's supported? Because obviously he is their key bowler, their key wicket taker. Do you think he's supported enough if he does have that slight injury cloud?
I don't think any team can afford, Hazelwood's in the same position with Australia. I don't think any team can afford to take someone in who's not able to do their job. Yeah. Certainly as a fast bowler, because you got your work cut out. If the wicket does flatten out and the sun comes out, especially in a place like Brisbane, which is beautiful for batting, you need your 3 quicks, you need your all-rounder, and you need your spinner. They'll be all working their backside off. So, but I'm confident. I've seen the footage of Bumrah. I saw the footage when he cramped in Adelaide as well. I'm confident he's 100% fit and he'll be fine. I'm also confident Josh Hazlewood will be fully fit for the GABBA. So he'll be back, in my opinion. And unfortunately for Scotty Boland, who was brilliant once again, I think he'll miss.
Yeah, he's that shame for him to be in such
He's Australia's 4th best bowler.
Yep.
unfortunately for him. But that's the reality at the moment.
And he plays his role perfectly, though, of
brilliant.
When you want me, my ceiling's not as high, but I'm always at my ceiling.
He has never let anybody down. Every opportunity he's got, he's grabbed with both hands.
I hope we see him at the Boxing Day test. Now, you've got next to you, though, a pink ball and a red ball. Before we get into the GABBA discussion, the pink ball test, obviously, that is the big talking point of day-nighters. Do we want more day-nighters? I would love 2 day-nighters over a summer. That's a different question, but tell us about the differences in the balls.
Yeah, look, the Kookaburra balls, I guess the main thing, and some people are really fussy. Some bowlers are really fussy with how the ball feels in their hand, how thick the seam is, the colour of the ball. So I know some bowlers that like a darker coloured red ball, for example. So they really study, because you get a group, you probably get a box of, I don't know, let's say a dozen balls to pick one that you bowl with up front, and then you give the match referee a second ball that you use at the 80 over mark if you decide to swap the balls.
And the bowler's picking it?
When I was captain, I allowed the bowler to pick it, yeah. So generally they would ask me, but yeah, it's their niche. It's like I pick my bat that I want to use, so I think the bowler should have the right to pick their ball. When I first started, Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne used to pick it together. So again, Warnie being a spinner, his feel on a ball would be very different to the fast bowler. So even that conversation, listening to those two was really interesting. But their friendship allowed them, thank God, to get a couple of balls and not have a fight over it. But the main difference, I think, is the pink ball, obviously under lights, is easier to see than the red ball, like a white ball in one-day cricket. The pink ball, in what I've seen in my time, it swings more than the red, and it swings for longer than the red. Now, that is the ball, but it's also conditions.
Yes.
But you look at the first innings with Australia bowling Mitchell Starc, it swung the entire innings. I can't remember, I actually don't know if it's ever happened when I can remember the red ball, maybe in England with the Duke, not a Kookaburra, and it's overcast the whole day. Did Jimmy Anderson swing that ball the whole day? But in Australia, very rarely do you see it with a red ball.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think there must be a difference in regards to the ball and how it's made and how it's produced, the colour. When you hold them, they feel exactly the same, apart from the colour. But there's got to be something there. But then I also know under lights, generally the ball certainly swings a lot more and sometimes seams more as well. When I look at these two balls now, the red one's got a bigger seam on it, a harder seam, a firmer seam, where the pink one's not as much. But I'm just going on really watching the day-night test at Adelaide. It swung the whole test match the last 3 years. Like the last 3 years, the game's been over in 3 days, a maximum of 3 days. So that's telling you it's much better fast bowling conditions than what you get, Wacker back in the heyday or SCG when I was playing, So I think this test match, there was swing from the pink ball, but there was also grass, so the wicket seamed. Yeah. That makes it extra tough for the batters. And you can have a look at, day-night test matches gone by. When the lights come on, that's when the batters say, rightio, we've got to close up shop, get through that period, because if the sun comes out the next day or when the lights are out the next day, that's when the pink ball does flatten out. That
was my question. When you're going out to bat and it's about 8 p.m., 8:30.
Nasty time.
What are you thinking?
Oh,
and
survive.
How are you batting towards this ball that's moving much more?
I think McSweeney and Labuschagne showed us in regards to you've got to back your defence, you've got to play the line, try not to chase the ball, but also the bowling is so important. You've got to attack the stumps as a bowler and you've got to try and make the batter play. And that was the difference between Mitchell Starc in the first innings and India's, when India had the best bowling conditions.
They only put 8 on the stumps in that last session. That's the difference.
But then you look at what they bowled in Perth.
Yeah.
90% would have been hitting the stumps. Like I think that was one of the things that the commentators said around Bumrah. He was just so consistent at ball after ball. If the batter misses, it's going to get you LBW or bowled. So I think it was a combination. I think yes, we saw it swing and seam when Australia bowled and Starkey was brilliant with it. But India, I think, were too short and probably too wide. But there is a big difference. So like I say, a ball that you asked Mitchell Starc.
It's more the conditions than the ball, though.
It's probably a combination of both. Mitchell Starc would want to use a pink ball every single game, let me tell you. And the pink ball, I think, generally swings more than seems. I think a red ball seems more than swings.
Yeah, there's lots going on.
Watch it close and hope you hit it in the gap and run fast.
Well, the GABBA's going to have the pink ball test next year, but they've got a red ball test coming up, and both teams 1-1.
Yeah, huge. This is a huge test match. Again, you're fighting for an advantage.
The GABBA's not what it used to be for us, is it?
Well, our success rate at the GABBA when it's the first test of the summer is very good. Since it's changed, it's nowhere near as good as we would want. And the GABBA is somewhere that we've always enjoyed playing as an Australian team. India will take confidence that they've played there and won there as well. So that's what I say. I've been trying to think, mentally who's got more confidence or who walked into this game feeling better about themselves. And when I look at conditions, I think Australia will be disappointed with the first test match because conditions were they're in our favour. They're in Australia's favour because of the pace and bounce and the sideways movement. We're more accustomed to that than India playing in Indian conditions where ball swings for 2 overs and certainly doesn't seem in India. So I think Australia will be relieved that they won in Adelaide and that we're back 1-1. But I don't think India will be too disappointed. If they had said before a ball was bowled in the series, after the Adelaide test, it was going to be 1-1, I think they would have taken that.
Yeah, and I think there were a bunch of moments in the last test, like dropping McSweeney, dropping Head, not bowling well in that last session. I think there were moments that they go, and India don't play many day-night tests. So I think there's a bunch of moments they might have gone into that test going, probably an X on that one anyway. So coming into the GABBA, which leads in that point of 1-1, pretty solid for India coming into this one. What do you think we're going to expect from this match, though? What do you think?
The one thing I'm looking forward to seeing, India's intent has been shown by their decision to bat first on both occasions. They've won both tosses.
Do you think they'll do the same?
And elected to win. I'm interested. I hope they win the toss at the GABBA because I'm interested to see what Rohit Sharma does. I think it's set a really aggressive tone for this tour so far because really I think they could have bowled first if they wanted to in both test matches and nobody would have said anything. But they elected to bat. It was I think it's definitely been the right decision to bat first, but it's been a courageous decision. So will they still do that at the GABBA? There's some rain in the lead up to the test matches, which tells me there'll be a little bit of moisture in that surface. But at the GABBA, if the wicket's a little bit slow on day one, you've sort of got time to adjust as a batsman. You can play and miss. You can get your bat out of the way. It's a little bit slower. Once that sun hits or you have a day on that surface where it dries out, the wicket quickens up. So sometimes day two, it doesn't move as far off the seam sideways, but it moves faster. So they're the ones that you do nick because you haven't got time to adjust. So I would like to think if conditions are what I expect the GABBA to be, like they have been for a long time, I think it's one of those ones where you're happy to lose the toss, but I think if you win it, you bat first.
So you would choose batting?
I would choose bat first,
in an unnamed side, unchanged side, besides Hazelwood?
Hazelwood would be my only change. If he's fit, he comes in for Scotty Boland for Australia. India, I don't think India will make any changes. I think they'll go with the same 11. The one thing that I'm interested with in that 11, does Rohit Sharma go back to the top of the order or does he stay in the middle order?
Interesting. Interesting. All right. So I'm going to ask you, who's going to win this test?
Australia's going to win on day 4.
Day 4. Well,
this one's going 4, not 2.5 days.
Yeah. Australia most runs. Heady again. He's our best batter at the moment.
He's our most aggressive.
Yep.
Luck's on his side at the moment, but he's playing beautifully. Really good intent. I'm going to go leading run scorer in this game, Marnus Labuschagne.
Well, you said he's going to get a century.
Marnus might get a big 100.
Ooh. India, most runs.
Jeez. India, most runs. Rishabh Pant, leading run scorer for India in this game.
You said Stark, most wickets last test.
I'm going to go for Australia, most wickets, Paddy Cummins.
Paddy Cummins. He's not had too many so far, has he?
Bowled well in the second innings.
Yeah.
I reckon that'll do his confidence the world of good.
Yeah, he was happy with a couple of his deliveries there.
Yep.
India, most wickets.
Geez, it's so hard to go past Bumrah. I just think if Bumrah gets it right, the only thing is Australia might now have a mindset of sort of see Bumrah off. Don't look to be too aggressive to him and see Bumrah off. Be really disciplined and try and score up the other end. If they do that, that brings Siraj into the game as well because he can get a bit of swing with that new ball. The GABBA, there's a bit of extra pace off that surface. I'll go Bumrah, but Siraj will be fired up, especially with what happened with Travis Head in Adelaide and the talk surrounding that. I think he might be at his best as well.
Is that something you'd do if you saw Bumrah easily their most attacking?
I think I'm certainly more circumspect to Bumrah if I'm facing him because of how good he is. But then you can't take any of the Indian bowlers. We saw in Perth. You can't take any of them lightly. If they play Ashwin as well, he's got a lot of experience. That extra bounce at the GABBA can help him if he gets an opportunity. I think Bumrah's that good that you've definitely got to be more disciplined to him.
Measured.
Definitely. Taking a risk off him is a nasty place to be as a batter. You want to be really switched on with your shot selection.
Which is hard when you have half a second to make that decision. And lastly, player of the match.
Player of the match.
You said Starkey, and he was close to being player of the match.
Yeah, it could have been as well. It might have been a little bit unlucky, but Travi deserved it with 140. Well, I've said Australia's going to win. I said Marnus is going to get a big 100, so I'm going to go Labuschagne man of the match.
Labuschagne. Let's watch this space. You were pretty good last time.
Let's see how we go. Indian fans won't be happy. Sorry, guys. We're going Australia 2-1 up before Boxing Day. Boxing Day might be a little bit different, but I think the GABBA, I think it suits Australia. I think Australia will be confident after the result in Adelaide. So I'm going to go the Aussies just. Day 4, get the victory. Well, Adelaide's done. GABBA just around the corner. Georgie, once again, thanks for your insights. Bring on the GABBA, and please make sure you follow us on Beyond 23. To all of our subscribers on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, wherever you're watching, please continue to show us the support. And don't forget those messages. Send them in. Georgie loves them.